Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Evening, we're going to call this Monday, March 27th, 2023, regular Board of Education meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bosso. Here. Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Martindale.
Here.
Mr. Shriner.
Here.
Mr. Caldwell.
Here. Next, we need a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So move, Shriner.
Second.
I'll second.
Any additions, corrections to the agenda? Roll call, please.
Mr. Shriner.
Yes.
Ms. Martindale.
Yes.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes, thank you. Now we'll approve the minutes from the previous meeting on March 13th, 2023. Have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bodo. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any additions or corrections to the meeting minutes from the 13th? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Martindale.
Yes.
Mr. Shriner.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Starting today, we're going to have a presentation on family engagement.
Thank you. Good evening, President Caldwell, Vice President Shriner, Mr. Bosso, Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Martindale, Dr. Wisen, and Mr. Garside. My name is Natalie Grayson, the State and Federal Programs Coordinator here at Southwestern City Schools. I am here tonight to talk about parent engagement in our district. At the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents, by Jane Hull. That is a true statement. But here at Southwestern City Schools, we place an even higher value on parent engagement. Parent involvement is more of a doing to, while engagement is a doing with, according to Larry Ferlazzo. And we agree with him. We understand that as their child's first teacher, it is not easy for parents to let go of those little hands and to put them in the care of teachers and staff. But instead of taking their hands and waving goodbye to parents, we see ourselves as holding the child's other hand and joining the work of teaching that parents have so lovingly and aptly begun. Tonight, we would like to share with you some of the ways we endeavor to engage with parents in the education of their children. At the district level, we require every one of our schools to have a parent and family engagement plan that is developed and reviewed each year with parents. Those plans include 4 key components. Number 1, the ways in which parents are engaged in the school improvement plan. Number 2, how parents receive communications. Number 3, how parents are informed about the curriculum and programming. And number 4, how parents can offer suggestions and participate in decision-making. At the start of each school year, the district opens its arms to welcome parents of kindergarten students and their parents and their kindergartners every first Saturday in August at our kindergarten stop and go event. It is held in conjunction with the first time bus rider event at Central Crossing High School and it gives kindergarten parents and their children a chance to meet school staff, learn about the lunch and breakfast programs, receive school supplies, a special book to read, other parent resources, and take a fun photo. We even give our parents a voice in policies. Every January, representatives from school PTAs have an opportunity to review and provide feedback on the district's parent engagement board policy and Title I parent compacts. But even more exciting than those things, I have with me tonight Principal Brian Novar of Darby Woods Elementary School and Principal Dr. Chad Clark of Beulah Park Middle School to bring to life some school-specific examples. Mr. Novar?
Thank you, Ms. Grayson. Good evening, school board. My name is Brian Novar. I'm the principal at Darby Woods Elementary. I'll share with you 3 new things that we're doing at Darby Woods this school year to help better connect with the families. The first that I'll share with you is a family week, which we had right around Martin Luther King Day in January in this past year. This was something that took on a new in the past. I'll get into that a little bit more here in just a moment. But the idea was we were inviting families in during the school day to get a firsthand experience of what the curriculum looks like. It also gave us an opportunity to share with parents some information from our Title I department, as well as give them some ideas and resources that they could take home with them to further connect with their kids and extend their learning outside of school. But the main part of this week was when the kids were able to come down and participate with their parents right alongside of them in our cafeteria. They were able to share some writing samples, read to the parents, and participate in some of the math games that they participate in during their workshop. So it gave the parents a really good idea of what kind of work and what their ability levels look like, and got to come into the school. One of the other fun things, and one of the questions I get asked more often than just about anything, is could we have a breakfast with our kids at the school? So that was something else we were able to accommodate that day and allow the parents to come in and have a breakfast with their kids that morning if they chose to do so. So the way that this idea came to fruition, in the past, we would do more of a curriculum evening where our parents would, or where our teachers would stay late, and we would invite parents to come back to the school in the evening. Our teachers put in a great deal of effort to really make a nice sound presentation for our families that really got into the details of what the curriculum expectations look like for the particular grade level. But we didn't, it wasn't very interactive. And some of the feedback that we got from our families was they wanted to do something a little bit more interactive. And we wanted to provide for our families something that really showcases what that learning looks like, not just what it sounds like. So that's how we were able to move it into something that happens right within the school day. The feedback that we got from our families, we put out a survey afterwards. And the feedback that we got from our families was really valuable. As you can see, without me going into each of the different questions, and this is just a small sampling, but generally the feedback that we received was very favorable. We also had a couple of spots where parents could give some comments, and again, everything was very positive that we received. There's also some really useful comments. I remember one of the parents had mentioned, hey, we had made a request to have a guidance counselor work with our child. And keep in mind, this was shortly after the winter break holiday. So one of those things that maybe just hadn't gotten started just yet, but I really appreciated getting that piece of feedback. And that was something I was able to follow up on and make sure our guidance counselor connected with that student shortly after. So it was another valuable part of it. So that was the first thing that we're doing new this year. The second is something I'm really excited about is our family field trips. We're using some of the ESSER funding provided from the CARES Act to help fund these firsthand experiences that look to engage not just the students, but their families as well. One of the things that I've noticed just in the 6 years I've been at Darby Woods is a lot of our kids come to school without having a lot of experiences that some of us really take for granted, even things like going to COSI and the zoo. So what we really aim to do with some of this is help to eliminate some of the potential barriers that might prohibit our families from engaging and going on some of these meaningful trips. And we removed a lot of the barriers, including transportation, food in certain cases, as well as tickets to get into these into the events. We plan it for a day, put the information out to the families and allow the whole family to go so that way they can talk. We give a little learning guide to help facilitate some educational related conversations while they're there. And then it's an experience that the whole family can digest and reflect upon and just enjoy, further on down the road too. There's a couple of pictures that we've included in here. Our first trip this year was to the Art Museum and the Franklin Park Conservatory. Before we went on this trip, we put out a form to have parents register, and most of the families indicated these are places that they haven't been to, or at least not since 2020 when schools were shut down with COVID. But for the majority of families, they had never been to this. So it was great to provide an opportunity to a place that people haven't been to. Our most recent trip was at the Perkins Observatory in Delaware County. That's the picture on the top left there. again, one of the hidden gems, I think, in the Columbus area that not too many people know about, but what a great way to inspire people to learn for, astronomy. We also have a trip coming up to Otherworld, which is an indoor play place and interactive art museum. And we're planning a trip to the Ohio History Center right towards the end of the summer. One of the best things about all of these trips that we're planning, they happen outside of the school day. So we're planning them on Friday evenings. We did one during our October in-service, so it doesn't interfere with the school day. And then the third thing that we're doing new at Darby Woods is we've started a partnership with Nationwide Children's Hospital to provide the Triple P Positive Parenting Program a couple of times over the course of the school year, right here at the school. A couple of leaders from the Triple P program come in. We put out information to the families, allow them to register for this in advance. And they lead about a 2-hour seminar on some topics that we think could be really supportive for our students. We've done one on setting good bedtime routines. Another topic was dealing with disobedience. And some of these topics we've surveyed our parents and gotten some feedback from our PTA too about topics that they think would be interesting and meaningful. Again, we provided some dinner for the families and childcare, and that way the kids are able to come and be cared for, so the parents are able to attend the workshops. All three of these things we've gotten fantastic feedback. There are 3 things that I hope we're able to continue in the future. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen on the board, thank you for having me here again, trying to set a streak for the number of board meetings that we had. So without further ado, we can get on to what's going on at Beulah Park with family engagement and some of the highlights that we've had this year, and some things that we want to continue doing or even do differently next year. When you come into Beulah, I may have just said Brook Park, but when you come into Beulah Park, one of the first things you see in the office, besides our friendly staff greeting you, is a big selection of books for some of our families to take home and for parents to sift through with the kids and look at that. They came from Books for Kids to Keep, and some staff contributions as well. So the younger kids come in and the families are looking through them and they kind of sit there on the floor and take a look at them, and it's a really good thing because we know when kids are getting their hands on books, they're going to be reading those books, and that's a solid start for them when it comes to their education. So we also, the building donated 1,519 books to Reach Out and Read. So we're also giving back to the community in that way. And that's thanks to the families, and our language arts teachers are heading that up. A story from that, we actually had one of our 7th graders who that shared a story, and her family shared the story about her having a medical condition that required a lot of hospitalization when she was younger. And one of the things she remembered most was sitting there reading with her mom during those hard nights that she had in the hospital. And they not only donated 20 books from their own bookshelves at home, they also went to the thrift stores around and got 50 more books to donate. So it was just a really precious story coming from that. When we first opened the school, we knew that we needed to get families in there and being a part of the school as much as possible. So one of the things our volleyball group does every year is that they have a staff appreciation night. So we changed it to a staff and community appreciation night where we invited the community in for free to come into our volleyball game. We had staff there. Go on to the next one there, Evan. We had staff there, and we also had the volleyball players who invited staff not only from Beulah, but also from other schools that they've had in other parts of the district that they've interacted with and has had a major impact on their life. So the community got to see the impact that our staff has on the students and their learning as well. One of the biggest things that we've done this year was our Fall Family Fest. We invited we invited all the families, but 150 families attended. And it was a lot of food, family, and fun. And it definitely looks like a lot of fun if you look at this, but really, if you focus in on it, what hits home with this is the learning that is going on and the display of that learning that they're showing. Our language arts department was talking about the themes that they have in their classes, science concepts that were learned in classes, the one with the black light, that was the fun science one. And then the social studies, geography games, math scavenger hunts. Each department and our PTSA and our Hope group, which is our student service learning, kind of a student council as well. That group all came together. And not only that, our food service crew came through feeding us like they always do. One of them had a kettle corn. That's our head cook. She had her and her husband have a kettle corn company that they have, and they donated a bunch of kettle corn. And then also one of our other cooks has a cupcake company, so she donated a bunch of cupcakes. And then we also had food trucks for people to purchase as well. So moving on to the next fun family night, that once again, a lot of fun playing mini golf with the kids. These are all student designed holes, and it focuses on the learning that they had from their advanced math classes and with Mrs. Bricker. And the kids got to come in with their families, and even kids that aren't in the advanced math class got to come in, and they were talking about the different concepts when it came to the angles they were hitting it off of the wall with, and the difficulty of the holes and things like that. It was a really fun night and really a lot of learning shown there too. This is some of the items that we want to keep bringing to Beulah and also even add to it. We just want to continue working with our community and schools folks, Buckeye Ranch folks, interpreters, attendance support mentors, and success liaisons, because all of those people help keep our kids in the classroom learning and getting to school and being where they need to be, and also bringing them in for things like a Spring Family Fest and showing some of those community resources and parent resources and how we engage our students, and continuing to show that academic side of things to the parents and letting them see what the kids get to do day in and day out. Also sharing a little bit of culture and food with each other. Food always brings people together. And then we'd also like to have families come in for some pertinent topics like digital citizenship and things like that to help them understand the middle school mind and the middle school world when it comes to social media, or when it comes to the learning that they're doing and things that they can use to help their kids at home when they come home after school. And that's a lot of the great stuff that we've been doing at Beulah, and we want to keep things going with some of those others as well. Thank you.
These are just two of the many examples of how hard our schools work to engage our families in their child's learning. Do you have any questions for me or the principals?
Any questions?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment that it was neat to see you're working with Westland High School as well. So that's a really nice piece of that also. Great, excellent. Thank you for those presentations.
And just to add, I'm just so energized by seeing this. It's very exciting. And I think that as we're all kind of focusing on like the idea of belonging to our district, that this is just a really great way to shout out to our families and our students that you belong, and those connections that are made even between families. I'm so excited. So thank you for sharing.
It's probably the biggest change and the most exciting change. We're actually asking families what they want. And we're doing our best to deliver it. And I think that pays off in a lot of ways. First of all, it's not what we think people want, that's what they're telling us. And then just the fact that we're asking for feedback afterwards, that we can make those adjustments. So we can continue to improve programming and make sure that that link between the child and the family is stronger. So lots of work to be done, lots of opportunities, but I think that communication both ways is very important.
So I have two questions. One is to Dr. Wise to my right. Can we get Bill Parker better book rack for that? You know, somewhere in the district, we could have a better book rack. And, I'm sure we'll make that happen. Seriously though, for Ms. Grayson, how do you engage parents during these events to get them more engaged in their students' life and keep them coming back to maybe volunteer in the classroom or other school functions? How does that, you know, one event is great, we want that interaction, but how do we keep them engaged?
It's a really great question, and that answer varies from school to school. Did other principals want to take a shot at that? Like, how do you get them to come back? How do you get them coming back after an event?
I would start by saying, I think it helps when there's there's a non-threatening and a positive experience that they could connect with initially. You know, it's been my experience, if parents come in the door and feel threatened or attacked, or, you know, the conversation's negative, they're not gonna be likely to, you know, partner with the school. We try to give parents a lot of different options, so like, for example, our family week was during the day, that might not work for everybody, but we have some evening events that people are able to engage in that. So I think trying to offer, you know, a range of different ways that families can get engaged, and then try to make sure that it's positive are a couple of good strategies to help keep them coming back.
And in their parent engagement plans, they list all of the ways that parents can be involved. And sometimes in school newsletters, they'll put reminders of the ways that parents can stay involved too. So just ongoing communication about ways that they can be involved and that they are welcome inside the buildings.
And my second question is, learning loss, obviously, it's a district and rural hard. How have parents been influential in voice of gap and some of our
Wow, I think I might defer to either our principals or our assistant superintendent of curriculum. Matt is involved in the ESSER funding and the ways in which we use our money for learning loss. So does anybody else want to venture?
I'll chime in.
Good evening, everyone. I think that's a loaded question in terms of trying to support everyone where they are. We keep trying to provide multiple opportunities. We have the digital virtual tutoring 24 hours a day that we've put in place. We've added humans to the day, but we also recognize as children develop and we come out of this thing, there needs to be a balance with just being a kid too. And so it's trying to keep providing opportunities that are new and creative, but also allowing children to enter where they want to enter. So, for example, we're going to be promoting this summer, not only some summer learning at elementary, kind of recovery at high school, but just a simple game board with learning activities for every family. So even if you can't come to a place because you're traveling with grandma or you believe in the power of play, there's still an opportunity for you to engage and play throughout the year. So I hope that answers a little bit.
I'd add also that we've given buildings individual dollars as well, because each building has different needs. So they can use their building dollars to figure out what they need to do to that cost.
I just think it's great that we can use these ESSER funds to help with that and support family engagement. Because it's really helpful and nice to know that, some taxpayers that we're able to draw down those federal funds to support. Anyone else have any questions?
I just, it's great what you guys are doing. I so much link the parent relationship with the children, and parents know what's going on, no matter what's going on in a child's life is so important. And you getting them engaged even more is great, because, we're not with these kids as much as their parents are. And especially with the parenting thing, the Triple P help parents deal with stuff that's going on, internet, phones. I know Jamie talked about that at our last meeting, and just screen time alone is so important to try to get these kids away from it. But most of all, just getting parents involved in their kids' education is so important. I love it. Thank you.
I just want to share before I sit down. When I first came to the district, one of my responsibilities is to make sure everyone has a parent engagement plan and to provide information about things like Triple P and other parenting partners that we have. But one of the things I did was I sent every principal a basket of professional development, and in there was a big microphone. And I told them to pass the mic to their parents. And so just to send home the message that their voices are important and that we need to hear from them, and it's going to make all of our schools better. So thank you so much, Rachel.
And Ms. Grayson, the one thing you said at the very beginning of your presentation that stick with me is that parents aren't handing off their children, but we're grabbing the other hand and walking with them. I thought that was a really great illustration of what we're trying to do. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll hear from Mr. Kennedy for our English language presentation.
Good evening, President Caldwell, Vice President Schreiner, Ms. Martindale, Ms. Johnson, Mr. Bozo, Dr. Wise, Mr. Garside. Always appreciate an opportunity to come and talk about the work that we're doing with our English learners here in Southwestern City Schools. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I've been fighting a cough, so I'm hoping it doesn't back up on me. One of the things, if you go back to that last slide that I love, that we talk about the fact that all of our students, we want people to know that you belong here. It's one of the best parts of working in Southwestern City Schools. When I go and speak with other districts, the work that we do, this district has always gone out of its way to make sure that all of our families understand that they belong here, that all of our families are included. And I think that's been a really key part of why we've been so successful in working with our English learners over the years. If you look at the numbers, I know at times there's talk about numbers flattening in some areas of the district. There are no numbers flattening in our EL department. I was here on the west side of Columbus when our first 6 to 15 families moved into the district about 33 years ago. I think that was about 16 kids total in the district at that time. Right now, we're sitting at about 3,600, 3,558, I think is the number. Our numbers next year project at 3,683. So our numbers have continued to grow, partially because we've had some new groups that have moved into the district. We'll talk about that here in a moment. And partially because we hear from our families all the time. We are constantly polling, surveying, and meeting with our families. And our families tell us that they're telling families around the central Ohio area the great education that all students get in Southwestern City Schools. And so that's really been something that has helped to continue growing the numbers in our department. In addition, it was 3,556 is what we're at right now. But in addition to those students right now, we currently have about 2,000 other students who have exited our programs over the years. So when you put those numbers together, it's about 25% of the total student population in Southwestern City Schools has a connection to our English language learner program. We talk about newcomers all the time. I want to make sure that people understand the kiddos that we're working with coming in. A newcomer in the state of Ohio meets one of two definitions. It's either their first year in US schools or they're students who are still performing at a pre-functional or beginner level, like a 1 or 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. In our district right now, about 53% of our students who come into the district qualify as newcomers. And so the work that we do to move those students from where they are to where they need to be, we're starting with most of our students who are at that lowest level coming in. This number always fluctuates. And so understand that it's always going to be mid-70s to mid-80s traditionally is where it's been. Currently, right now, we are at 78 different languages and dialects that are in the district. Spanish is still overwhelmingly the largest of those groups. About 70% of our 3,500 are really our 5,500 with our exits come from families where Spanish is the main language. Somali Arabic holds at about 20%. That's about 13 to 14% Somali, about 6% Arabic. But the one I have starred is our Ukrainian speaking students. That number was at less than 2% last year. It's at 6% of our district languages spoken total, which is a huge jump in 1 year's time. Our numbers have gone from 20s or 30s to over 200 in the space of a year. And so we have a significant Ukrainian and Russian population, but really those Ukrainian numbers have grown quite a bit. And then Hakachin is that other population. That's the other significant population in our district. Our EL program goals are the same as every EL program in the state of Ohio is supposed to have. It is our responsibility to first make sure that students develop English language proficiency. Then we have to make sure that we integrate language and content instruction for all of our students. And we have to prepare our students to meet the same challenging, rigorous academic content standards that any other student would have. But our focus is always on English language proficiency in as short amount of time as possible. So I always go back and do my EL 101 piece to make sure everybody understands that when we're talking about second language acquisition, there's two different things we talk about. We talk about BICS and CALP. BICS is the basic interpersonal communication skills. It's just having a conversation with someone and understanding what they're actually saying to you. That typically takes 1 to 3 years to develop when you're new to a country, when you're new to a language. CALP is the cognitive academic language proficiency. That's the one that's more difficult. It's the language that you need to perform in school, to be able to comprehend, to demonstrate comprehension on things that you're learning. That typically takes 5 to 7 years to develop. The outlier in that is if we're talking about an adolescent newcomer, someone who comes from grade 8 forward, the research on an adolescent newcomer is that it could take anywhere from 7 to 12 years to develop cognitive academic language proficiency. Our data tells us that if we have kids for 3 consecutive years, we have a great chance of moving those kids towards proficiency. Those 8th grade and higher, that's a challenge, it's a struggle. But we're doing a lot of things to make sure that we are all rowing in the same direction, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So we really love this "What's your plan" piece. I mean, for us, we are part of the curriculum department, and we feel like, just like our curriculum department has looked at this and said, we have to help every kid figure out what's your plan. We have to work with families to help them figure out what's your plan. That's been a particular focus for our department. From an academic standpoint, I'm going to say this and it's a little jumbled. ELA is English language arts that we're talking about. So ELA for all of our students, but for our students who are learning English as a second language, it's ELA classes that they're in. Everything that we do is to make sure that we are helping our students to become those problem-solving, persevering self-starters that we want all of our students to be. And so when we talk about the things that we do, everything we do is aligned around ELA standards. And the state of Ohio set the standards that way intentionally so that you understand what you're doing to try to help students develop those English language arts proficiencies and those standards. The EL model is based on the ELA model as far as what's going on. So we really focus on structured literacy. We focus on all of the legislation around dyslexia and the dyslexia training, all of those look-fors for us as we move forward in that area. We really work on that release of levels of support so we can move students from modeling to small group work to them being able to do things on their own. But everything that we do is based on ELA and literacy standards. And so our teachers work closely with our instructional coaches. They work closely with any of the PD that's going on across the district. And again, the dyslexia training right now, the structured literacy piece, that has been a primary emphasis for us right now. It's been a primary focus for us through this year and last year. So when we talk about our TESOL staff, that's who teaches ELA classes. Our TESOL staff are trained in our best practices for second language acquisition. That's what they bring to the district coming in. But they have been trained in second language acquisition strategies. Our job is to make sure that we're providing professional development that not only augments what they come to us with, we also want to make sure that they are able to couple that with this structured literacy approach on working with students. And so for us, what we found is for our students, there's 2 areas that we really feel like we have to hit. We have to hit phonological awareness, especially with those newcomer students, so that there is an understanding of how words work. And we're really doing a lot of work there. And we really focus on oral language. Oral language is such an important piece because, again, in the BICS and CALP paradigm, you never get to CALP if you don't start with BICS. And so what we really work with our staff on is how do you use those oral language strategies, those skills, or how do you help develop those? And then what are we doing to develop phonological awareness? And so just like you would see in any of our classes in the district, it really is a focus on we model, we do together in small group instruction or small group work, and then we work kids towards independence at that point in time. What's a little different at the secondary level is at the secondary level, we really try to make sure that we are addressing those, and really it happens grades 7 to 12, it's 5 to 12, but 7 to 12 is where you really see a focus on what are we doing to support academic content standards in science, math, and social studies. And so our TESOL staff helps to provide vocabulary support at the secondary level. And then we have classroom teachers who've been trained in this sheltered instruction model of instruction that's a best practices for how do I bring those good second language acquisition strategies to the work that I'm doing as a science teacher, a math teacher, a social studies teacher. It's led us to ask the question of what are we looking for by the time kids get to middle school, high school, especially, what are we looking for as far as the real world is concerned? And so we've spent a lot of time working with our career tech department and working with the community to ask that question, what is it that we need? What are we looking for? And what's come back more than anything is we need language support. The community, the businesses in the community, the businesses throughout Central Ohio have said we need language support. And so we've talked about this before. We've partnered with Ohio State and Ohio Health. We've partnered with Central New Mexico Community College, and we've been able to put together a medical interpreter program for our students. We've been able to put together a bilingual customer service program for our students. And then this heritage language Spanish course has really helped to develop reading and writing skills in English first, but in Spanish also, which again, for the businesses in the community, that's something they've told us has worked well. Our kids have been out over the past few years in a number of opportunities in a number of fields, and they've been able to secure a large number of their career opportunities. They're not just jobs when they graduate, they're career opportunities, and we have businesses constantly asking us for more. Our partnerships with these colleges or with the universities and then with the businesses have resulted in a lot of students having opportunities to earn partial or full scholarships. Our fun story that I think you've probably heard already because we've been talking about it. There's a young woman at the Southwestern Career Academy, Hanan Sheikh. She was instrumental in helping to move forward an opportunity to develop a diversity club at the academy. She felt like she just wanted to be a part of sharing her experiences, finding out more about all the students who were there. She worked with the staff and the administration at the Career Academy. They were able to stand up a diversity program that really just gave students a chance to get together and talk about the different cultures and just a lot of the opportunities that they had chances to speak about. And we just found out like 2 weeks ago that she received a moral scholarship program, excellence scholarship from Ohio State. It's a full scholarship. So full tuition, full room and board, everything is paid for. And again, I was talking to somebody from another district today who's working on developing an English language program in their district. And I said, sometimes you never know the directions things are going to go. You never know the opportunities that the work you're doing might open for one student or for 10 students or for 100 students. And every once in a while, these stories come up that just remind you that the work that we're doing as a district is good work. It's the right work for these kids. Non-academic supports, we have partnerships. Now I say non-academic, a lot of these partnerships end up being academic supports as well. But there are, it's an ever-growing number of organizations that we partner with to try to make sure that not only are we providing resources for our students, but that we're providing opportunities or outlets for information for our families. And so one of these, CRIS, the Community Refugee and Immigration Services, we've been working with them. They've been mentoring students in our high schools this year. And so in this next slide, you'll see just 2 weeks ago, they took a huge group of students down to Ohio State. Some of these students had never been on a college campus before at all. And what they really tried to do that day was work with Ohio State to say, whether it's here or at another university, what's your plan? What are the things that you're looking at as you prepare to leave high school and move on to that next portion of your life? So again, those partnerships we appreciate. And then finally, the work that we do with our families. It was so nice to hear Natalie and the principals talk about the family engagement piece. We have worked with Natalie these last 2 years to really make sure that we have bolstered what we're doing with our families. And so we've been able to form some partnerships where we've been able to bring books in, put books in the hands of our EL students, primarily at the elementary level. This year, we're going to put books in the hands of kiddos at the intermediate level. So we're just going to kind of keep moving up. But then we've been able to bring families in and have conversations with our families about, how do I read with my student? What should I be looking at? How do I set up a reading area? Any question that they might have. But primarily what we do for our families is we make sure that they understand what's happening in our district. And so we make sure that we provide language assistance needs. We address language assistance needs for anyone who requests language assistance in our district. And so right now we can provide in-house Spanish, Somali, Ukrainian and Russian and Hakachin. We're the only district in Central Ohio that has a Ukrainian, Russian and a Hakachin interpreter. We're the only district in Ohio that has a Hakachin bilingual assistant. And we're constantly working to try to find more folks who can help support those needs for our families. And so our bilingual assistants provide that support. Then we use a service called Marty. It's a telephonic service. If a bilingual assistant is not able or is not available. Beyond that, we work a lot with our the agencies, the interpreter agencies throughout Central Ohio, and we try to address every need we have. So any request we get for an interpreter, any request we get for a document to be translated, We do everything we can to fill that. We're successful 98% of the time. There are some obscure languages that it's hard to get translations for. But as far as those basic everyday needs, we make sure that we address those needs on a daily basis. So it's a wonderful department I work with. I get to stand up here every year and tell you about all the wonderful work they do. I'm just very fortunate that I get a chance to work with them, and I'm fortunate that I work in a district that goes out of its way to support all of our families in the district. So if there are any questions I can answer, anything I could address, happy to do that right now.
Question, just comment again that I appreciate the presentation, and it's always interesting to learn about the diversity in our district. And so the young lady that got the scholarship, do we know what she's gonna study?
She has not, I just talked to her last week. I know when you talked to her, she's not really crystal clear on that right now. When we talked to her, she was still so overwhelmed. She said when she got the email, she wasn't sure she should open it at first, but then it said really important to open. So she thought I should probably open it. So I'm not sure what exactly it is she's looking at, but just a wonderful young lady, wonderful conversation.
Always impressive. As we grow, your program just expands and grows. It's wonderful.
I appreciate that. Again, a lot of good people doing a lot of good work in the district. So I'll make sure they all know.
We thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Always do a really great job, and it's nice to hear that we're leading in some areas too, especially with the growing population of Ukrainian and Russian speaking students we have, and being the only place with Dr. Chin speaking over there. That's great. It was funny, before you got to that slide, I was starting to think, connecting that presentation to yours, how do we engage parents? And you covered that beautifully. And it's nice to know that we can still work with parents that they've built the same right, the support services. Appreciate what your department does, as well as yours. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna get to the business of the board next. For our guests, you're welcome to leave if you'd like, or you can stick around, whatever you'd like to do. Up first on our agenda, items for action, students, schools, and community report is Ms. Martindale.
Yes, thank you, President Caldwell. On the board agenda for this evening for students, schools and community, we just have two items. North Middle School students travel to Washington DC, and Central Crossing High School indoor percussion travel to Highland Heights, Kentucky. Having reviewed these items, I recommend the passage and move to do so at this time.
Do we have a second?
Second, Shriner.
Any discussion on these? Hearing none, roll call please.
Ms. Martindale.
Yes.
Mr. Shriner.
Yes.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Next under items for action, our personnel report with Mr. Shriner, Vice President.
Thank you, President Caldwell. On the board agenda for Monday evening, there are 7 personnel items involving 62 persons. This includes 4 certificated resignations, 1 administrative employment, 4 certificated changes in employment status, 19 certificated employments, 14 classified resignations, 12 classified changes in employment status, and 8 classified employments. After reviewing these action items, I move them for passage at this time.
Sarah, do we have a second?
Second that.
Motion is second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Shriner.
Yes.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Martindale.
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Next up is items for discussion by the board. Hearing, okay.
Point, it would be okay with the board as we look to our April 10th meeting. There are not items that are time pressing, and there are items that we can't have ready until the 24th. So it would make sense from our perspective, if it's okay with the Board of Education, to essentially cancel the April 10th meeting and do our regular business meeting on April 24th. So it will follow the form and function of the first meeting of the month, but it will take place on that April 24th date. That's acceptable to the board.
So the public participation portion will be moved to that meeting, so that would still be there for.
Yeah, we use a separate format for the first meeting, so we'll follow the first.
Any discussion on that?
I think it's fine by me.
Makes sense.
Can I get a motion to accept the recommendation by the superintendent? We have a motion by Ms. Martindale, do we have a second? Second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion on the matter? Can we have a roll call on canceling that meeting?
Ms. Martindale.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Bosso.
Yes.
Mr. Shriner,
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. There are no other items for discussion. I entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
We have a second
Second.
and roll call.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Martindale, Mr. Bosso,
Yes.
Mr. Shriner,
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Good night, everybody.